Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is David, and today we are going to wrap up the month of September, Cimmerian September, the best reading month in the history of BookTube. It was wonderful. Spoiler alert. And look at what I'm going to be reading in October. Not with any definitive TBR plans, but I'll talk about what I'm currently in the middle of. And what at the moment I think that I might be getting to later on. So let's start with what I read. So I have an untidied stack here, so let me pull out the three of them together, because this is where they should be talked about. Alright, so we have all of the Robert E. Howard Conan right here. This was magnificent. If you've never read Conan, I strongly encourage you to pick up one or two of the stories. You know, in particular, a couple out of The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. There are better ones outside of here, but I mean, you can't go wrong with Tower of the Elephant, with Queen of the Black Coast, the Scarlet Citadel, Rogues in the House, or even something really short like the Frost Giant's Daughter. All of those are excellent entries. The best Robert E. Howard Conan, if you're looking for it, is in this volume right here, Bloody Crown of Conan. And it is The Hour of the Dragon. There's no shortchanging it. It is glorious. I read it, I think, either December or January this year. I know it was very, very late in the year, or at the very beginning of this year. And I remember sending a message to Michael K. Vaughan and saying, when I got through to the end of that is the most complete and glorious Conan story I've ever read. And go figure. I mean, I had one other volume I had never read before, but that is, it's not surpassed. He may have surpassed it with other works, but in terms of Conan himself, that is the pinnacle, and it was magnificent. The other thing I read as part of Cimmerian September was Robert E. Howard's Savage Sword, Volume 1. So this is collecting Dark Horse. They did some Savage Sword, and what I was thinking, so this is Volume 1. I was excited because I was thinking it's going to be Conan. It starts off with Conan and the Jewels of Hestern, because it says it's got issues 1 through 4. The other Conan story comes at the very end. Conan White Death. So we have a whole bunch in there. There are 2 issues, plus all the extras, where Conan doesn't return. We've got Elborak, you've got all kinds of other great characters, great stories being told in here. In particular, there were 2 that were really, really good. The first being the Sonora Kid. So that was Knife, Bullet, and Noose, which was good. I enjoyed it tremendously. Not the same as I would have Conan. And the other one was The Spear and the Siren. Which, you saw that Viking longship there, so that gives you an idea of probably why it stood out for me. But there was surprisingly little Cimmerian adventure in here. That was disappointing. So I probably won't pick up more of the Savage Sword, which is why I picked this up, was, to test it out and see if I wanted to try to read more of them. I don't know that I do. So those were my exploits with Conan, and it was magnificent. I also read the exploits of Brigadier Gerard for Roger's Steepled Book Club. Yes, it's been a while since I participated. I made sure this month I did, and I enjoyed every minute of that. It was a great pairing with Conan, because both of them are told in short stories, so I was kind of able to bounce between them if I needed a short palate cleanser between some Conan stories. I could throw on Brigadier Gerard and enjoy myself. I also read the very first Conan, whatever, pastiche by Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp. Did not prepare my e-reader for those. But I also read that, which had 2 of Robert E. Howard's stories in their original form, or at least close enough. And then a whole bunch of others, which were... The plots in them were good. The writing in them was not Robert E. Howard. Not anywhere close. And I think that's going to be a case in point as I continue through them. I've got most of the 12 of them. I will continue to chip away at them. Probably not this month, but I will continue to chip away and try to get through all of the L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter Conan line of novels. The first one was kind of disappointing. Yeah. So in September, there's also Shake-Tember, which had me reach for the graphic novel that I've owned the longest. This is the graphic novel that I bought first, and it's been on my shelf for ages. It hadn't been read. That's Kill Shakespeare. So this is volume 1 by IDW. There's the one. And the first 6 issues of Kill Shakespeare. So the idea being it's all of Shakespeare's characters on page. And they are, traveling around. Our main character is Hamlet in here, of course. And there's competing forces. You can see there he meets Falstaff. And so the main villain in here, the 2 main villains are Richard III, so you can see him there, along with his companion Lady Macbeth. They work together. And then on the other side, you've got Falstaff, you've got Othello, and you've got Lady Juliet. And so these 2 sides are trying to convince Hamlet to work for them because he's prophesied to be the one who will be able to find William Shakespeare. And one side wants William Shakespeare for good, and the other to kill him and take his quill, which has power. So it really, really intrigued me through the first 6. It was a great Shakespeare reading for me, and I definitely want more of these. So that confirmed for me. I would like to get the rest of them. And since comics don't count on the 500 book challenge, I will eventually pick those up. I also read King Richard III. This was one of the 3 plays that were chosen by the wonderful hosts. And I had this one in the Arden Shakespeare, which was one of 2 Ardens I had on my shelf. And I had picked it up because I really wanted to try the Arden Shakespeare out to see what I thought about it. And as you can see here, there's footnotes galore. There's plenty of pages where there's more footnote than text from the play. And it also has almost 100 pages, over 100 pages, 117 pages worth of introduction before it gets to Richard III. Because I've found that I don't really want to grab my Riverside Shakespeare. I've got it all in one volume. It's not really viable for reading. And so I'm considering the Arden as the line that I would like to get all the Shakespeares in. And I think I'm pretty solidly set on that. King Richard III is fantastic. I have Henry V on my shelf as well, which I know is fantastic. This is my second time reading Richard III, and my goodness, how it comes to its brutal and glorious end. It's wonderful. Those who haven't read Shakespeare probably don't understand as much, but it was good to get to the part. So one of the things I'm doing, I was sent some old science fiction fantasy magazines by my friend Scott Danielson, who used to be a booktuber. And he had picked them for a particular story or stories that are in the collection. And so I started off this month by reading this, which he had picked because of Robert Silverberg's story there, Gilgamesh in the Outback. It also had some stories by Walter John Williams, Andrew Weiner, R.A. Lafferty. It had a novella in here, which the name is escaping me. Video Star so that's the one by Walter John Williams. It also had a story in here from Molly Glass. The star in here is absolutely Gilgamesh in the Outback. And how fitting was this? So I thought, you look at that cover, you think, that fits with Cimmerian September. Gilgamesh, of course, that's a good shoe-in. Little did I know, it also features 2 authors very prominently in the story. So Gilgamesh is a main character. H.P. Lovecraft is a main character. And Robert E. Howard is a main character. What timing is you can't make that up. And a magnificent story. Absolutely loved it. It's a novella. And I loved every page of it. So thank you, Scott, for this one. And I will be reading another one in October. I don't have an attachment to magazines, but until I get it in a different book somehow, this is a keeper. Just because I'm going to want to go back to that story. It was good. So I've got 2 more books to talk about that I've finished in the month. I got through a lot. Partially because I finally got back into doing some audiobooks. So these next 2 are audiobooks. So Fifth Heart by Dan Simmons. This was my first Dan Simmons outside of the Hyperion Cantos. And it was a good gauge on him as an author and whether or not I was going to enjoy him outside of Hyperion. And the short answer to that is a huge resounding yes. He has potential to be a favorite of favorites. So, Tolkien is at the pinnacle. Robert E. Howard has established himself in that area. Joe Haldeman is well on his way to establishing himself in that area. Ray Bradbury's already established. Dan Simmons is climbing his way up there too. So this is Sherlock Holmes and Henry James are our 2 main characters set in America to solve a mystery. And it is wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I loved every bit of it. And about 2/3 of the way through, I even sent a message to somebody asking for recommendations on Henry James stuff. Books by and about it. Because, well, this has me genuinely interested in the man. And so we couldn't have a full month without some disappointment. Other than that Conan comic. And I knew when I held this up in a recent video, when I have this on my shelf of books I wanted to read next, I predicted this one would not be as well for me as it would have been a couple of years ago. My tastes have changed a little bit. And so I listened to The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I think 2 years ago, I listened to Circe. And I really enjoyed Circe. I did not enjoy this one nearly as much. The first half of it, I was ready to be done. I'm glad I didn't stop there, because the second half was a little bit better. But the main character in here not only is completely unlike the character from the Iliad, but he doesn't really have any growth of character. Patroclus is supposed to be on par as a great soldier along with Achilles from the Iliad. And in this, he is absolutely impotent with weaponry. He gets several chances to train as a soldier and passes them by because he knows he's terrible at it. He becomes a healer instead. And yeah, I mean, it was fine. It wasn't as big of a disappointment as I was expecting, but I did not love it. I'd much rather reread the Iliad. Every time. I would pick the Iliad over that. I do have 2 other comic things that I have to talk about. I got through a lot of stuff in this last month. It was a good month for reading. So I read this 6-issue series. So I have them in issues because I don't think there's a trade paperback, but this is Mechanics. So this is a mini series starring Kitty Pryde. So X-Men fame. She's able to phase in and out of her form, is able to pass through solid materials. So that's her big shtick. And this is her after Xavier and leaving the X-Men at some point in time. And she's trying to just fit in and be a normal kid in college, I think. Except things follow her, because why not? And there's, the dynamics between the internal threat in the school. There's a big movement of anti-mutant, of course. And then there's Sentinel technology, of course. It was by Claremont, surprisingly, and it was okay. I didn't love it. I'm glad it was 6 issues. I'm glad I read it because I wanted to try all of the little mini-series that Kitty Pryde are in. And I wasn't a huge fan of that one. But to redeem the comics other than the Shakespeare one, we had Green Arrow. So this is Sounds of Violence. And so the bulk of this is made up of Green Arrow having a story alongside that character there. So, you can see the clever naming, Flash and Foul, or Feasted and Foul. They're polar opposites in terms of the political spectrum. So everybody expects them to be at odds against each other, but they have to kind of work together at times. So this is Oliver Queen. Apparently he's back from the dead. I'm completely removed from the DC universe, but this was so his return from the dead came in volume 1, which is Quiver. This is volume 2, I believe. So yeah, this is Green Arrow 11 through 15, and done by Kevin Smith. And I really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't as huge of a fan of the art style. I mean, you can see that we got the Riddler making an appearance. I've always enjoyed the character of Green Arrow ever since, the CW series Arrow. And I wanted to read some Green Arrow, and I was not disappointed. So I'm going to want to pick up more and read more. Michael, Steve, any recommendations? I know I keep waiting for Green Arrow to pop up on a Comic Wednesday, and he doesn't. Maybe that should tell me something. So now we turn to what I'm going to be reading. Okay? There are a couple things I've already started reading. I've started Synthetic Men of Mars. This is Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is book 9 in the Barsoom series, an 11-book series. It's wonderful. I mean, by this point in time, I there's nothing more to say about it. It's wonderful. I'm still in the middle of Wool by Hugh Howey. I haven't really progressed much. I've picked it back up finally after the last 2 weeks of not touching it. I read a chapter so far, so I'm still in progress. I'm back to it. So we'll get there eventually. I'm in the middle of a read-along with my friend Scott Danielson on Gene Wolfe's Shadow and Claw. So this is Book in the New Sun. This is books 1 and 2. We are slow burning our way through with just a couple of chapters a week, and then we're talking about it. About the middle of this month, we'll finish book 1, I think it is. And then I imagine by the end of November, we'll probably finish the second book that's in this volume. And then I'll be ready to move on to the second half of Book of the New Sun, and if it hadn't have been for Conan, this would have been the best thing I was reading last month. This is wonderful. There's so much in there. Alright, so most of this month is going to be dedicated to The Man of Steel. So this is volume 2. I've read volume 1 a month or two ago. I'm going to try to get through the 7 volumes. So I'm well underway. I'm enjoying it. I've never been big into Superman, but I'm hoping that this will win me over. The other thing that I've already started, and it's just going to be, I'm not finishing this month. I'm not planning on finishing or even coming close. But I was at the library yesterday and I was looking around. I wanted to check out something. So I checked out the complete works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I've read a couple of sonnets out of here already and really, really enjoyed them. So it was good to get back to Longfellow. I loved what I read of Longfellow, I think it was last year, when I was in the midst of my poetry kick. I'd like to get back into a poetry kick. So the last couple things, I haven't started any of them yet, but I'm planning to here shortly. So this is the magazine that I'm picking for this month. So this is Asimov Science Fiction. This is mid-December 1986. It's got Robot Dreams from Isaac Asimov. It's also got a story in here from Harlan Ellison. So let's see what we got in here. So as a serial, part 1 of 3. I'm not going to do the serial because I don't have the others. But it's got 3 novelettes. It's got Dancing It All Away at Nadoka by Lucius Shepard, and The Adobe of the Snow by Pat Murphy, and Neptune's Reach by Gregory Feely. And then for short stories, it's got Robot Dreams by Isaac Asimov, Blood on Glass by Gregory Benford, and Laugh Track by Harlan Ellison. Obviously, I'm excited about the Asimov and the Ellison so much. So this is going to be a good one to be reading this month. The audiobook that I just checked out, to go with one that's on my shelf, because I'm wanting to get through these ones first, so that's why I grabbed it. Killer Angels by Michael Shara. So many people reading this for BookTube at War and raving about it. So, I'm excited to give it a listen. If it's not jiving with me while I'm listening, I'll stop the audio track and give it a read instead. I suspect that I'm going to enjoy it enough on the listen that I'm going to want to have that to revisit and read. So the other book that I've pulled out that I'd like to get to this month, and this is kind of fitting for the month. That's The Forsaken Boy by Troy Trader. It's a werewolf novel, and I will be very, very excited to get into this. Probably once I finish the Barsoom book, I'll roll right into this one, and Wool will be just whenever. And if I need a palate cleanser between some Superman comic reading, I'm going to try to get to X-Men Colossus Bloodline. So the other thing I've got pulled out is my ebook that I'm going to be reading this month. I am about to start in, and I'm not planning on finishing this month. This is Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. This is one of 3 Japanese epics that I'm planning on reading. So I've got this, I've got The Tale of Genji, and I've got Shogun. I'd like to read all 3 of them in the next 6 months-ish. If I give myself 2 months apiece, maybe I can get through them all. Anyway, I've gone on long enough, but I'm just wanting to update the counter because I'm back on the 500 book challenge. Have been for about 2 months now. Started back over at 0 because I was still kind of on it, but I wasn't really counting, and I wanted to get back to counting. So I'm at 21 now. And so I'm rolling into October at 21. So, Michael, you're not alone. Good for you for keeping strong in Boston. I will catch you all later.